I was asked to go to the Chicago Bulls training camp in 1993 to help the guys deal with the stress of success.
Take me back to the beginning, where your career started and what that looked like.
I was Dr. J's roommate. What motivated me to get clean? A lot of people don't get clean.
Especially after coming out of 3 championships, 91, 92, 93. We're talking about a high-performing team.
Right. I want to help everybody, to experience their masterpiece within, release the divine spark or the Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it.
And welcome back to the Digital Legacy Podcast. My name is Daniel Sanchez. I'm CEO and founder of Reekolect. And we're here at the Rice Estate at Turnerhill with a very special guest with us here today, George Mumford. George, thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you, Daniel. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, George, I want to go ahead and just give out here a quick little background on you, just to get us going. And that way it could set the tone and then we can take off and go any direction we want.
Sounds like a plan.
Absolutely. Yes. So, a little bit about George Mumford, renowned author and speaker of mindfulness and performance expert, globally recognized speaker, teacher, and pioneer in sports psychology and performance, helped luminaries such as Phil Jackson win 8 NBA championships and Michael Jordan transform his leadership, coached the Stanley Cup 2024 finalists, the Edmonton Oilers, and president of Eye of the Hurricane LLC. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
All right. So it's definitely the right George, right?
It's right, George.
George, some great. So let's start off on this note. Take me back to the beginning, where your career started and what that looked like and how it all began.
So if I go back to my time at UMass, I was Dr. J's roommate.
You were Dr. J's roommate?
Dr. J's roommate,
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
It was my sophomore year. And I got injured my ankle, which actually ended my career, and addicted to pain meds and into illegal drugs and alcohol. And so I was around the game, and I was kind of at that point it was still, everything was under control. But then fast forward to 1984, I went into detox because I was a functional substance abuser. And then when I went into the detox, I actually got reborn, you might say. In other words, everything changed. And when I got out, then I started focusing on me and focusing on what motivated me to get clean. A lot of people don't get clean. They don't find sobriety. And so I became fascinated with how I was able to do it and just the transformation, my own transformation, and trying to understand it. So I started, questioning and looking in that domain. And so I went back to school after 13 years, and I continued to learn about myself. I did a lot of study. I read over a book a week for the last almost 41 years. Yes. And so I started learning about the mind-body process and how to manage stress and how change my relationship to stress, but really getting to a point where I started understanding that it wasn't so much what happened to me, it was my response to it, that I could actually create this space between stimulus and response with my training, not just meditation and mindfulness, but also reading about psychology, philosophy, about the mind-body process. And so I was very fascinated, and I knew that the best way to learn something was to teach it. So I started doing things like I volunteered at and worked at detoxes, helping other people get clean. I also worked in a stress reduction clinic at UMass Medical Center, early 90s, and learning about the mind-body process. And then, as it would turn out, I was asked to go to the Chicago Bulls training camp in 1993 to help the guys deal with the stress of success. I had a conversation with Phil, and he said it would be good for you to come in and help the guys because they had just won their first 3 NBA championships, 91, 92, 93.
Right.
And of course, when I got there, they were in a full-blown crisis, and Michael had retired. And then I got to create the possibility with the guys of how to embrace this crisis. And when I talked to the team about that, I talked about this idea of crisis has 2 meanings. One meaning is danger. We get that one. The one we don't get is the opportunity. And so we were able to embrace that opportunity. And then MJ came back 18 months later. And then we had a challenging with 95. When he came back, we lost in the playoffs. But then 96, 97, 98, we won championships. championships. In 96, we won 72 games out of 82. And so it was overcoming that adversity and people buying into this idea of that it's not what happens to us, it's how we choose to respond to it. And in that space between stimulus and response, we can create this resilience, this strong self-efficacy that says, it doesn't matter what happens to us, what matters is who we are being when we respond to it. And so just tapping into the, what I would call a masterpiece within, the divine spark, and accessing that.
Wow, that's absolutely very profound. And let's unpack that a little bit. As you go through your journey and you became sober and you finally found this opportunity with the Chicago Bulls, as you can imagine, so many people have seen so many documentaries on the Bulls, and they probably have a certain sense of love for each player. You had your Dennis Rodmans, you had your Michael Jordans, you had your Pippins and so on. But when you were helping them out, I'm assuming it was as a whole, as a group, right?
Yes, it was both, individually and collectively.
Okay, individually and collectively.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm sure, and I understand that you had to take crisis and show them the opportunity side of it, because you were very clear. You're right. The first thing that we always detect is the danger. That we get immediately. But where it takes, I think, more skill is to kind of reevaluate what's happening and look at it as an opportunity. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit, what was it like with the team? Because I'm sure it wasn't an overnight thing. This is a process.
Yes, it's a process. But the interesting thing is, it's interesting because I had no idea what I was doing. It was like, now that I think about it, it was just this desire to serve and to share what I know, to share my experience, strength, and hope. And so I had to find my way through, feel my way through, but I knew I wanted to connect with them. And so being an athlete, ex-athlete, I knew that talking about being in the zone or being in flow would be something they'd be interested in, because they all have had that experience. We all have had that experience.
In that sense.
Yeah, connect to that. And so we talk about how to do that, how to make the mind flow ready, because if you try to get in the flow, you won't. But there's certain conditions that if you focus on those conditions and the way of being, just being in the moment, manage the moment, having a positive mindset, then you're going to get there. And so just talking to them about that, creating that possibility where people want to say, yeah, I want that. And so we talked about that, and we talked about what we wanted. We didn't focus on what we didn't want. We focused on how to unlock, how to be ourselves. And so the authenticity is really important, just being real, being able to embrace it. So it's like, okay, so MJ's not here, or we had adversity, somebody gets injured or whatever. We have to reframe it and look at it as what's in the way becomes the way. This is what Marcus Aurelius talks about. It's like whatever's there, all of the obstructions, all of the distractions are part of the game. They're not separate. Injuries are part of the game. People leaving are part of the game. People getting traded or it's part of the game. When you embrace all of the obstacles as part of the game, now there's not a resistance to it, there's an embrace of it, and using that adversity to go to the next level, because as human beings, we have this capacity when we confront problems directly, when we don't blame and we don't deny, we create the opportunity for our latent abilities to express themselves. And in my case, the adversity that I went through in college actually prepared me to help people go through their adversity, and I'm helping them not through theory, but through my own direct experience.
Last question on a team like that, especially after coming out of 3 championships, 91, 92, 93. We're talking about a high-performing team.
Right.
Would you say, were they open to listening and really trying to go through the steps, or were they on such a high horse at certain times where it took time to really, your message to resonate and for them to see the results?
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, because it's having a certain level of humility and having a little hunger. So sometimes I like to talk about the 4 H's, which is, core values like happy, healthy, humble, hungry. And so there's a willingness to be open, an open-mindedness, a willingness to open to what's possible. And so when you help people see that this is advantageous, or this is something that's going to help you express yourself more honestly or go to the next level, you're willing to do it. So there was a lot of openness to it. I'm pretty sure that's because of the environment that Phil created. And there's something about when you experience success like they have, that you get an understanding of what it takes. And so if you did what you've been doing, even after winning a championship, you're not going to get to the next level. You have to continue to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And so having done that, before Michael came back, there was a stress hardiness. There was an ability, a hunger, and a humility to be open to it. And it's interesting because it's those people who want it, not the ones that need it. People would say to me all the time, oh, you need to work with this one or that one. And I say, it's not for those who need it, it's for those who want it. Why? Because you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to keep moving out of your comfort zone. And that's how you get in the flow. You get in the flow when you have clear goals and you get immediate feedback, but your relationship between your skills, knowledge, and attitude and your challenges. So you have to keep challenging yourself out of your comfort zone, because you might say we spend most of our time between boredom and anxiety. So when we're bored, when we have a lot of skills, knowledge, and experience and low challenges. And we get anxious when we have high challenges and low skills, knowledge, and experience. So we're always working on getting better, moving towards more levels of wellness, I would say. You keep improving a little bit a day at a time, and at the same time keep challenging ourselves so that we're in that high state of arousal. So we're not just willing to be chilling and we're just laid back, and there's a comfort, there's a relaxedness to it. Of course, you have to relax to recover, but you have to keep moving out of your comfort zone. Yeah, because if you're not uncomfortable or experiencing any discomfort, then you're not growing.
Very powerful. Moving along from that, let's discuss a little bit about what drives your work with Ivy Child International. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I want to help everybody get, to experience their masterpiece within, release the divine spark or the Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it. So it doesn't matter what age you are, but if we can get them early, if someone would have found me when I was younger, it may have made a big difference, because now I would understand that I'm responsible for my reactions to things. And that instead of doing the blame and denial, just to embrace problems. Problems aren't to be avoided. They're used for our transformation. They're used for us to level up, because it's the mental illness, the opposite of mental health is not embracing, legitimate suffering, because that's what happens. Life is painful. It's difficult. But if we accept that it's difficult, then it's no longer difficult. It's like, oh, this is happening because it's supposed to be happening. And with the growth mindset, how do I relate to it in a way that empowers me, actually helps me to raise my consciousness, my level of thinking.
And you think it has to start as early as early childhood, right? We need to
It can start whenever it starts. So when you're ready is when it starts. But if you have if somebody would have come to me when I was younger and say, hey, here's another way you might want to look at this, another perspective. Problems are not something to be avoided. They're something to be embraced, and they can be leverage points for you to grow spiritually, mentally, and emotionally.
Very powerful, very powerful. George, let me also ask you, this level of mindset that you were able to evolve yourself to, does it have any roots? Do you think it comes from mom, from dad, grandma, or is this something that you feel you were shaped by your environment and it allowed you to evolve, or is it a little bit of both? What would you say?
Well, nature and nurture has an impact, but here's the point, is the consciousness that we're in is our ability to say yes to life, which will actually take us beyond our genes and beyond our nurture. This is the thing, being human beings, we get to choose, so we have autonomy. We get to choose what we focus on. Now, the challenge is a lot of us are running on an automatic pilot, or we don't know what's running our lives. What thoughts? Why do we pay attention to certain thoughts, behaviors, and feelings, or what we learn from the environment or from adults? We just take that and we don't challenge that. So we have to examine not only the world so we know how to be in it, but we got to examine the examiner. We got to examine the mind in which I am observing my experience. So if I'm in survival mode, where I'm coming from lack or fear, then when I observe my experience, 9 out of 10 thoughts are going to be negative because I'm in survival mode. I'm looking for danger. But if I'm in growth mode, or if I'm in love, or if I'm in curiosity or interest, now I'm looking at what's the lesson? That's a totally different psychology. So everything begins with the mind. So it doesn't really matter so much of what's happening to us, but it's helpful if we have a purpose, we have an idea of who we are. So I would say self-knowledge and self-invention are lifelong processes. And so I'll give you an example. So the way I work with Chicago Bulls in the 90s is not going to be the same way I work with the Lakers in 2000s, or any other team I work with, whether it's the Edmonton Oilers or the New York Knicks or the Miami Dolphins or any CEO or any youngster that I'm working with. It's always the same drill, as understanding that, we have autonomy. And it's helpful if we bring curiosity, interest. What is this? What's the lesson? That we bring passion into it, and we bring purpose. This idea of, actually not only integrity, but compassion, competence, and this wanting to connect to something higher than ourselves. Because every organization begins with the individual self. So wherever you go, there you are. So if you're developing yourself to the best of your capacity, whether it's work, love, or play, you're able to say yes to life, embrace it, generate the hope, and make wise choices that are in alignment with values, principles. Because principles don't change. So when your values are principles like love, fairness, compassion, wisdom, or insight, those things don't change. They're timeless, they're universal, and even though things are changing, we are staying in alignment with how things are, because there's a lawfulness to this universe. And if we align ourselves with how the things work, the lawfulness, not only are we going to be happy, we're going to be able to excel. We're going to be able to perform and be more fully engaged in the moment. So it doesn't matter if you're an athlete or a CEO or father, son, or daughter or wife. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, are you being your authentic self, and are you being in the moment and living according to your values, according to principles? So it's the principle-centered existence. And so our energy comes from this idea of having autonomy, being able to direct our attention, bringing curiosity into it, bringing passion into it. So we're dealing with the physical, which is the discipline to actually do the physical thing, the mental, the vision, what is it we want, and how we're going to get there, and then the emotion, which is having the enthusiasm, the curiosity, the interest to say yes to it, but then having that driven or aligned with the purpose. What's our intention? What are we trying to accomplish? Who are we, and where are we going? So if you don't know who you are, you can end up being anybody. And if you don't know where you're going, you could end up going anywhere. So why not choose who you are? Now, I don't mean like just make something up. I mean go inside and release that divine spark, release that masterpiece within that has its own uniqueness that never was, never will be anybody like you. If I talk about you or me, and the only one I can really be is me, but I have to be honest enough and be willing to deal with the discomfort of going inside and allowing myself to express itself. That still small voice we talk about. It's easily drowned out. So this process is about allowing ourselves to get comfortable with that discomfort, because the more we listen to that still small voice, that wisdom, that creativity that's inside, the louder it gets.
And it becomes that voice of reason and guidance.
And it becomes a way of being. It becomes like, okay, you just know things. And we do that. How many times have you had an inclination to do something, and if you did it, it worked out, or if you didn't do it, then you say, I should have done that. Right. But I didn't listen because the head got in instead of me listening to my own self. And so to be spontaneous, that's what it means to be in flow, is to be spontaneous of one's own will. It's not somebody else. It's not some authority that's been imprinted in us telling us you should do this, but it's being in our flow, being in something our heart would tell us, yes, this is what is right. This feels right. So me, I'm kinesthetic, so it's a feeling. So if I stay in my flow, if I stay in how I feel about things, I'm probably going to be okay. I'm going to be more than okay. I'm going to be amazing.
Wow, very powerful. George, and also in a little bit in finalizing and closing, what advice would you give to, and kind of taking it back to when you first started, right? You were an athlete, and due to an injury, you got addicted and so on. There's a lot of countless similar cases that happen, not only to athletes, but
everybody.
Everybody.
Well, life happens, and then the real question is, who or what is running your life?
Exactly.
So for me, I'll just share with you, so having core values that are aligned with principles. So my core values are love, curiosity, truth, wisdom, integrity, selfless service, courage, compassion. That for which I can be counted on for is to be loving with a warrior spirit, with a serving and compassionate heart, pursuing excellence and wisdom with grace and ease. There's a spiritual foundation from which I am coming from, because my intention is not only to have self-mastery, but to be in relationships with others, because we live in a network of relationships. So it's like self-awareness, self-regulation, self-mastery, and then social awareness. In other words, understanding and feeling other people, having empathy and compassion for others, because I am the other one. So it's like, how can I find my voice and help other people find their voice? How can I encourage people to be who they are? And the best way for me to do that is to be who I am to the best of my ability, and then say, you know something, Daniel, I need you to be you, but it's an inside job. It's inside you. You have to go in, and it's only only you could do it. But if you go in and you connect with that and then share it with the rest of us, then that's dope.
Very profound and very deep. Absolutely. Well, George, last question I just want to quickly just wrap up with. With everything you've been able to do, helping out not only you yourself, building a legacy, but as well as helping out legacy teams and famous figures and public figures in the different industries. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, it's interesting because I was just reading a quote by Lao Tzu about leadership. When he says, when you're being a really good leader and you are helping people, they think that they did it.
That's true.
So it's like I want to be remembered as somebody who is being authentically who they are, not doing what he should do, doing what he feels moved to do. It's spontaneous. It's of one's own freedom and will. So I just want people, so I guess I want people to find themselves more than I want them to feel about what I was able to do.
Well, George, listen, this has been an absolutely phenomenal episode. Thank you so much for your deep insight. Again, everything that you discussed about, and I love especially that one point that it goes far beyond than just your genes or your blood or your upbringing. It's truly finding, like you say, that divine spark, that energy within you, that soul, right, that can overcome, and then that aspect about instead of just reacting to what's happening, just really controlling how you react.
Yeah, and pausing, slowing down, and then asking, what can I do for the highest good?
There you go.
Or what's going to be the most beneficial thing I can do? And that's, we have that ability, man, and we need to connect with ourselves so we can connect with others and realize that I am the other one. We get beyond this illusion of separateness. Things are always changing, so we have to change. But we can be, if we have those core values, if we have those principles we're aligned with, principle centered, we know where true north is, we're going to always know how to get back on track. But if we don't know where true north is, then we don't even know where we are.
Absolutely. Well, phenomenal. Well, again, George, if somebody wants to know more about the organizations that you handle or anything else more, where can they find you?
They can go to my website, georgemumford.com. I'm also on, I'm in social media like Facebook, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, that they can see a lot, over 200 episodes of At Home with George.
Oh, phenomenal.
And other things. But yeah, so the main thing is they can go to my website.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the description then. Well, George, again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. But I want to thank you for the listening and the questions.
Oh, absolutely.
See, because this is not a vacuum. You create a certain listening in your audience as well.
Of course.
And the fact is, asking the questions and creating a space for me to just be myself. I want to appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you for that. I truly do enjoy every time I do meet a professional like yourself. Just hearing your legacy, hearing about what you've done also motivates me because I feel that everyone can resonate to that message.
Yes.
And again, when we're talking about self-development, evolving, and I truly love what you're saying about, we're not limited to just our blood or just our upbringing. I mean, we also have that free will, to your point.
That's right.
To dictate and control our lives, and to your point, get back on track and follow that true north.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for the experience.
Thank you.
Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. And until next time, thank you very much for joining us.